Chef Dyer here, and we're back with another video. Today we're cooking seared flank with potato tostone and a beautiful chimichurri. Welcome to the Really Good Food Show. My name is Joshua Dyer. I am a chef. I've traveled all over the world, cooking my way through some of the most incredible destinations. Now I'm here with over 20 years of experience, ready to share with you my secrets on how to simply cook really good food. Welcome to the Really Good Food Show. Thanks again for joining us today. So like I said, today we're going to cook flank steak, a beautiful chimichurri. We got some local Alberta potatoes we had picked up from the farmer's market just the other day. Potato tostone is a really cool technique. We're going to boil the potatoes ahead of time, let them cool down, just crush them slightly, and then sear them in olive oil with lots of salt and pepper, and just top them off with a little bit of sour cream. It's super tasty. So I'm going to go through the ingredients that we're going to be using today, and then we'll start our recipe. So of course, we have a beautiful piece of flank steak here. This is from a local farm here in Alberta. So that's gonna be our protein for today. Like I said, we have some really nice Alberta potatoes, garlic. This is gonna be for our chimichurri. Some nice shallots, also for our chimichurri. Fresh lime, jalapeno, and then lots of fresh herbs. So chimichurri, my favorite combination for chimichurri is a combination of fresh oregano, fresh cilantro, and fresh Italian parsley. Super, super tasty, really herbaceous, really light and fresh. It is delicious. Also in our chimichurri, we need olive oil, red wine vinegar. Like I said, for the potato tostone, we're gonna finish it with some sour cream. Let's get cooking. So follow along at home. I'll have the recipe linked in the description below. So the first thing we're gonna get started with today is we're gonna start our potatoes first. We're just gonna lightly boil them till they get nice and soft, put them to the side. As those are boiling, we're gonna get our cast iron nice and hot for when we're ready for our flank steak. So to get our potatoes going, we need to get a nice pot. Now I'm gonna put the potatoes right into this pot. We're just gonna lightly cover with water and bring it up to a boil. Once it hits a boil, we're gonna drop it down to a simmer and just keep an eye on these guys. So happy to be here today. Super pumped to finally be cooking in the kitchen. So we're gonna set these potatoes on high heat. And we're gonna add just a little bit of salt. So as they boil, they start to season themselves. So I got some nice sea salt here that I've ground up in this mortar and pestle. So just a little bit until you want it to kind of taste like the sea. That's how you know it's nicely seasoned. Okay, so as these potatoes are going, we're gonna get our cast iron nice and hot, so when we're ready for our flat iron, it's ready to rock. So I'm just gonna turn that up to about medium heat for now. And that cast iron is great for searing because it retains a lot of heat. It's a really conductive material, so it's ideal for whenever you're searing something. You want that really nice, hard, high heat. So for our chimichurri, we're gonna start by brunoising our shallots. Now, a brunoise is a really fine dice. With this kind of fresh salsa, there's lots of texture and you want all of our dices to be uniform. So with the shallot, just gonna take the top part out, cut it right in half like so. Now, a shallot often can grow in sort of weird ways. So often after I cut it in half, I'll actually quarter it as well, and that's gonna make our life a lot easier. We'll put our onion skins off to the side for now. I like to save onion skins, especially if we're gonna go make a vegetable stock later on, or a beef stock or a veal stock. The onion skins will actually add a lot of really nice flavor. Again, today is all about minimal waste. So we went shopping the other day, we picked up all this wonderful stuff. So we really wanna take advantage of those ingredients that we got and make sure we don't waste. So again, just peeling back that first layer. It can be a little bit tricky sometimes, but we want to make sure we get as much of that shallot as possible. Another trick too is you can actually take the edge of your knife and just gently scrape back, and that will kind of loosen the skin off and make it a little easier to peel. It's nothing worse than getting all those garlic and onion juices stuck in your fingernails. They'll smell for a while. Okay, so we have our shallots peeled. So for this recipe, we're also going to use 2 cloves of garlic. Same sort of thing, nice fine brunoise, nice small dice. Really the foundation of cooking really good food, it's all about building flavor. And the more we can build flavor from the very beginning, the better things are going to taste. So as we're saving these ingredients right now, this is going to be a really good base for a nice soup or a nice stew later on. Okay, now that the hard part is over, we can have some fun. So now we're going to brunoise our shallots. So to do that, you want to make, very carefully, some sort of nice lateral slices with a really nice sharp knife right through the shallot. Make sure you don't go, you want to go close to the end, but just don't go all the way through. After we have our lateral slices, we're then going to go in from the top, same sort of thing. All the way through, but keeping that end part nice and tight. Okay, now that we have our shallot set up, nice, even slices down, and we'll end up with a really nice brunoise, nice and even. Beautiful. Always make sure when you're doing this technique, you're keeping your fingers nice and tight and a little bunch like this. And you almost use that one side of the knife as a guide. And you always angle the blade away, and that way you won't cut yourself. Like so. When you get really good, you can start talking to people, show off a little bit. Okay, now that we have our shallots brunoise, we're gonna add that to our bowl and then move on to our other ingredients. Okay, now that our potatoes are boiling, we're going to drop them down to a simmer. We want to make sure we just gently cook the potatoes, because if we overcook them, they're going to get mushy. We still want to maintain a little bit of that texture because we're going to get them nice and crispy later on. Okay, now we're going to brunoise our garlic for our chimichurri. Same thing that we did with the shallot, just with the garlic. Okay, now that our garlic is nice and fine, we're going to add that into our chimi. Okay, so we have half a bunch of parsley, half a bunch of cilantro, and half a bunch of oregano. We're going to leave those stems on. I'm just going to take a little bit just off the end. Those stems have a lot of wonderful flavor inside, and they're really going to pump up our salsa. So with this, we want a nice fine chop. It's a very rustic sauce from Argentina, one of my absolute favorites. Again, we're going to save those stems because that again will add a lot of nice flavor to a stock or sauce in the future. And this also will last in your fridge for a few days, so it's great on steak, it's great on chicken, it's great on fish. You can have it with your breakfast eggs in the morning, awesome with potatoes, with hash. It's really super versatile. The oils from the herb just start to let out and you really smell that wonderful flavor. So we're gonna add this into our bowl. All right, next we're gonna brunoise some jalapeno, add a little bit of spice. We're gonna take the seeds out so it's not too spicy. You can definitely leave the seeds in if you like something with a little bit more spice to it. So with the jalapeno, I'm just going to take that top off. I'm just going to cut it into quarters. And I'm just going to take my knife and just carefully remove the pith and any seeds. Also, a little trick, a little chef insider tip, if you will. If you ever see a spicy pepper, typically peppers that start to curl up on the end are extra spicy. So if you like spicy, grab those ones. If you want something a little bit more mild, stay away. So once we have the seeds removed, we're just going to cut this into a julienne cut. So a julienne cut is just nice, long, even strips. Julienne cut is typically reserved for vegetables. So by doing this, we're making nice, even pieces, and we're going to put them all together. And that way, again, we're going to cut them brunoise. Brunoise, nice and fine. Keeping those fingers tucked nicely behind. And we're going to add that to our bowl. Okay, so just to quickly recap, in our bowl here, we have parsley, cilantro, oregano, garlic, shallots, and jalapeno. So that's the base of our chimichurri. Now we're going to add a little bit of red wine vinegar, some lime juice, and then finish it with olive oil, salt, and pepper. So I have a fresh lime here. Just going to squeeze it, put some pressure, and that'll just allow me to juice it a little easier. Cut it right in half, and we're going to put the whole juice of that one lime in there. Okay, we're going to add a splash of red wine vinegar. The red wine vinegar really bumps up the flavor. Acid plays an important role in cooking when really trying to heighten and balance out those flavors. Whenever you taste something and it just kind of bursts full of flavor in your mouth, typically it has a really nice balance of fat, acidity, salty, sweetness. It's that balance that really gets your palate going. So with this salsa, red wine vinegar is essential. Okay, and then we're going to finish it with some really nice cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. You want just enough olive oil in there so it just barely covers your salsa. Too much, it'll be too oily. Too little, it won't have enough body. Okay, now that we have most of our ingredients here, we're going to mix it, we're going to season it with salt and pepper. So we're just mixing that up until it's all nice and together. We have a really nice sea salt here. Nice little sprinkle of salt. Some fresh cracked pepper. And we're just going to mix that together. Give it a good taste. Now that's really good food. Okay, now that we have our chimney together, we're going to put that to the side, and we're going to get our flank steak ready. Okay, as our potatoes finish up, we're going to go ahead and season our flank. Honestly, super simple. Nice, cracked sea salt, with some nice fresh cracked pepper. Whenever you have a good quality piece of meat, you really don't need to do much to bring out those flavors. I like to keep it simple. You can obviously do some really nice barbecue spice blends. We'll get into some barbecue spice blends down the road. But for the purpose of today's video, we're going to keep it really simple. There's tons of flavor in that chimichurri, and we want the beef to shine. So both sides. And it's important to note that whenever you're searing something, you want that product to be nice and dry. The purpose of searing this piece of meat is we're going to start to develop a lot of flavor on that outer crust. We're going to caramelize all of those sugars and bring out some magical flavors. Again, the secret to cook really good food. So to test to see if our potatoes are done, we're just going to do the fork test. You're just going to take a fork and just gently poke your potatoes. If it goes in nice and soft, then you know that they're done. Okay, our potatoes are ready. We're going to strain them off and just lightly crush them and put them to the side for now. So we're just going to lightly crush our potatoes. For this, just use the back of a knife. Just enough that you break them and they hold their shape. Okay, now that our potatoes are crushed, we're going to put them to the side and start cooking our steak. Our cast iron pan is nice and hot. We're going to give a nice hard sear to this flank. Whenever we're searing something, you want to use an oil that has a really high smoke point. You don't want to use olive oil because what will happen is it will burn before you get that nice sear on your piece of meat or whatever else you're searing, and you're gonna taste that burnt, smoky oil taste. So we have canola oil here, has a much higher smoke point, and will suit our purpose for our flank steak. We're gonna add just enough oil to cover the base of that pan. Be careful, it's hot. Now that our oil is nice and hot, we're gonna add our piece of meat. We're gonna turn that heat up to high to get a nice caramelized flavor on that piece of meat. We're gonna cook that piece of meat to an internal temperature of 125. Once it's 125, we'll take it out, let it rest for a good 20 minutes. You always wanna make sure you rest your proteins. What that does, it allows the moisture inside to soak back into the protein and stay inside. So when you slice that piece of meat, it's beautiful. It contains all those juices. If you slice that right away out of the pan, all those juices will spill into your board and you'd lose all your flavor and all of your moisture. It's really starting to smell like really good food in here. This type of meat really won't take too long. You're looking at about maybe 5 to 6 minutes per side, but again, it all depends on the thickness of the protein, the quality of the meat. So there's a lot of variables at play. So make sure you have yourself a meat thermometer handy, and again, temperature will never fail you. So now that we have a nice good sear on the one side, we're gonna flip it. Okay, now that we have our beef flipped, we're gonna add our potatoes and a couple tomatoes. We picked up these beautiful vine-ripened tomatoes that we're just gonna add into the pan and blister. We'll add some flavor, some nice color to our dish. Presentation is very important. At this point, I'll add a nice knob of butter. It's gonna help with the browning process and also add a ton of flavor. So we're gonna let those ingredients finish searing. Meanwhile, we're gonna check the interior temperature of our piece of meat. So far, we're only sitting around 100 degrees, so we still have a few more minutes to go. Now that our butter is melted and the other ingredients are cooking away, we're gonna take some of that fat and start basting our piece of meat. With beef, you can also tell when it's getting up to temperature once you start to see those juices rise to the top. If you notice it's a dark red, then it's reaching that rare, medium rare point. If the juices start to run clear, then it's heating medium and going past medium. Okay, we're right about 120 degrees. I'm gonna take this off this heat and let it rest. Now that we have our beautiful piece of flank, beautifully seared, golden brown, just look at the caramelization happening on the outer part of that piece of meat. We're gonna continue searing the potatoes and the vegetables and get our plate set up because it's almost time to eat. It's also important to note, we're gonna save all those juices in the pan there when we're slicing and serving our flank steak tonight because there's tons of flavor in that pan. Don't get rid of that. That is the good stuff. Okay, now that our flank has had the proper time to rest, we're gonna slice it, plate it. Guess what? It's time to eat some really good food. There you have it, seared flank steak, chimichurri, potato tostone, a little bit of sour cream, super delicious, full of flavor, super easy, everything available at your local market. That right there is really good food. Thank you so much for cooking with us today. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to check us out next time on The Really Good Food Show.